This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie Tee? Welcome. You are here on lockdown coverage. Your man Louie Tee here covering the entire National Football League like a blanket. Week number 3 in the National Football League. And your man has got you all squared away. All 16 matchups will be broken down here on this channel, Louie Tee Network. If this is your first time here, welcome. Subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great coverage throughout the 2016 season and beyond. Also on Twitter, at In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. If you're out there on Twitter while you're watching this and you want to comment, use the hashtag LouieTeeLive. And also, while you're there, follow me on Twitter. A lot of different things will be up on Twitter, including a lot of updates as to when these videos are posted and different things throughout Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday Night Football. I'll just be tweeting randomly. You don't want to miss that as well. So go ahead and follow me on Twitter if you haven't already done so. And also Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. A lot of updates on Facebook as well. And I may be doing some extra things on the side on Facebook as well, whether it's now or into the future. You go ahead and get yourself locked into Facebook as well, because I'll be using that platform down the line eventually. So let's jump into week 3. In this game, Baltimore at Jacksonville. Jacksonville starving, trying to get their first win of the season. Ravens looking to remain unbeaten on the season. Let's jump into this, as I like to do, likes, dislikes, and any banana in the tailpipe for these two teams. And let's start in the first half with the road team, as I customarily do, the Ravens, and my likes for the first half. Flacco with the TD run. I think his athleticism is underrated. I don't think enough people, and you know how I feel about Joe Flacco. I'm not going to sit here and explain that to you any further. If you don't know, go back and check my archives about Joe Flacco. That's my guy. And so I think his athleticism is underrated. I don't think enough people give him the credit that he deserves for how well he moves in and outside of the pocket. You saw it again on this particular play, getting outside the pocket, extending with his legs, and then getting into the end zone for the first score of the game for the Ravens. C.J. Mosley with an interception. He had an athletic pick here, had an athletic pick last week versus the Browns to seal that game up. That's a guy that athletically is gifted in the middle of this defense, continues to make plays for this Ravens football team, and will continue to be a staple of their defense moving forward. But the field goal before halftime was critical. Look, the Ravens won this game by 2 points. And we'll talk about how they were able to get their hands on that last second field goal, and really not last second, because that field goal came with time expired on a free down, untimed down, as the Ravens initially missed their first attempt. Just incredible, just short on a 57-yarder, but got a second opportunity 15 yards closer, which was essentially a chip shot for Justin Tucker the second time around, nailing the 42-yard field goal, sending the Ravens to the halftime break with a 13-7 lead instead of the 10-7 lead initially thought to have been had going into the break. We'll explain that a little bit further when we get to the Jacksonville Jaguars and their first half dislikes. Let's get to the Jaguars. Speaking of which, in their first half likes, Malik Jackson signing. Hello, Malik. Good to see you, man. Good to know you're alive. Haven't made as many impactful plays, and not to say that he hasn't played well, just hasn't had the impact that I thought he would thus far, but he's starting to settle in, got a sack, got some pressures in this game on Joe Flacco. Good to see Malik Jackson making some plays. Big punt return by Rashad Green, setting the Jacksonville Jaguars up in a position to get some points on the scoreboard. You need those types of plays. If you're the Jaguars, you need to find a way to get points on the scoreboard. You really don't care how they come. You just want them to happen. And that Rashad Green punt return was huge in them getting some points in the first half. AR-15 with the touchdown grab, his first of the season. They've been waiting for him to show up and make some plays, and that he did in his football game with a couple of touchdown grabs. Good to see him getting going, because, again, this offense isn't good enough to not have their stars perform. And obviously, Allen Robinson, AR-15, is one of their biggest and brightest stars on this football team. He has to show out for them to have any opportunity to win on any given Sunday, and especially in games like this against tough opponents like the Ravens. Ngakoue getting pressure. This is the second week in a row Ngakoue has gotten to the quarterback and forced the football out. Last week, you were able to recover versus San Diego. That could have gotten a lot more out of hand than it already did. And so him forcing that fumble in the red zone of Phillip Rivers was huge. He did it again in this game. Now, this time, the Jags weren't able to pounce on the football, but it's good to see Ngakoue, a guy stepping up, because I haven't heard a lot of Dante Fowler Jr. making plays. I've heard a lot of Dante Fowler Jr. making some blunders, as he did in this football game, but not a lot of plays being made by Dante Fowler Jr. He did make one play, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, that did help this Jaguars team temporarily. But again, the guy that seems to be generating the most pressure out of all of the young players is Ngakoue, which is somewhat of a surprise because I did not think Yannick Ngakoue would be this prevalent of a pass rusher for the Jaguars this early in his career. Good to see him continuing to get consistent pressure on the quarterback. Let's go to the second half the first half dislikes for both teams. We'll start with the Ravens. And Joe Flacco having a drop interception, by Kamalei Correa. And Kamalei Correa had an opportunity for a pick six. Blake Bortles threw it right to him. He read his eyes. He took him straight to the football. He had an opportunity. If he catches that, he walks into the end zone. And he dropped it. And against teams like this, that's how you put them away. That's how you get rid of a team like the Jags who are being pesky, who want to hang around and try to steal the game at the end. You put them away with opportunities like this that fell to the ground. If you're Kamalei Correa, you need to pick this football off. Dropped 3rd and 3 by Bashad Perriman. He saw footsteps. He heard footsteps, saw a defender. He got scared. He put the football in, and he will drop the football. We talked about that. That was one of the knocks on him coming into the draft, was that he'll drop the football. And if you put a guy right by him, bearing down on him, looking to deliver a blow, he will start to have alligator arms. He had it on this particular play, and that stopped the drive in the first half. I do not like that at all. Go to the Jags in their first half dislikes. Muffed opening kickoff. This Jaguars team is so frustrating for so many different reasons. And even though this didn't turn out to be a turnover, it just speaks to the problems with this football team. You can't muff the opening kickoff of the game. I mean, literally not catch it, have it bounce into the field of play, and have to dive on it and barely get the football back, okay? That's something that should be reserved for high school, maybe college, but not the NFL. And that's, to me, a microcosm of the problems in Jacksonville. They just don't do things correctly. We'll talk about more of the things that they just don't do correctly later on in this breakdown. Missed deep ball. Okay, they had a wide open receiver down the sideline, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Marquise Lee streaking down the field, and Blake just missed him. Simply had 2 or 3 steps on the closest defender. He catches that in stride. It's a touchdown. And Blake just simply overshot him. Again, you can't miss. You're not good enough. You cannot. And really, most teams in the league aren't good enough to miss opportunities like this. I talk about the deep ball and how deep ball accuracy separates quarterbacks in this league. If you can hit the deep ball when it's there, you're going to excel in this league as a quarterback. If you miss that consistently enough, you're going to be frowned upon because those opportunities don't come often in this league. You got to hit those. And Blake simply missed in that first half, a golden opportunity to make a big play for his team, potentially get in the end zone, and Blake simply overshot his intended receiver. Blake B throws an interception. What's new? He seems to do 1 or 2 of those per game. This has got to stop. And I've got something to say about Blake Bortles a little bit later on in the program. We'll continue on, though. Malik Jackson with a personal foul on the 3rd down before the half. I thought it was a little ticky-tack. Got a little piece of Joe's helmet. I mean, I hate when drives are continued off of something like that, okay? It's one thing if it's a malicious shot where he comes down and he clobbers him in the head. Yeah, that was one of those situations where I'm trying to get my hands up. I'm getting blocked by a guy. My hand comes down inadvertently, smacks the quarterback in his head, but barely, and they called a personal foul penalty that extended a drive that ultimately ended up being a Justin Tucker field goal to end the half, which they shouldn't have even had an opportunity to get. But then they got and then missed, and I'll talk about that here as we segue into the final dislike of the first half. Dante Fowler Jr. with a leverage penalty, giving the Ravens a second opportunity at a missed field goal. So not only should the Ravens have not had the football still after the really ticky-tack personal foul penalty called on Malik Jackson, but they missed the 57-yard array before the half. It's 10-7. If you're Jacksonville, you dodge the bullet, you feel good, you're only down 7. Despite not playing well in the first half, And Dante Fowler Jr., for some inexplicable reason, decides he wants to try to jump over someone, gets clipped. And you can jump over guys as long as you don't touch them. The second you touch anybody, your guy, a defensive player, an offensive blocker, whomever, the minute you touch a guy, you make contact with another player on the field. When you try to jump to block a kick, it is called leveraging. It is a personal foul, unsportsmanlike conduct type of penalty, and it's going to cost your team 15 yards. In normal situations, that's 15 yards and a first down. The offense gets back on the field instead of the special teams coming out to kick. In this particular position, half was over. Ravens missed. It's 10-7. Instead, the Ravens get an untimed down to go 15 yards close. Justin Tucker not missing from 42 yards. You best believe that. And he drilled it home to give them a 13-7 lead going into halftime. We'll talk about the importance of that made field goal and that blunder by Dante Fowler Jr. and the Jaguars going into halftime a little bit later on. But just a tough sequence of events for the Jags at the end of the first half. Let's get to the second half likes. A dropped interception Flacco with 21 straight completions. Should have had 22 because Mike Wallace had the touchdown in the end zone. Joe puts it right on him. Really good play by Josh Johnson, the cornerback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, to knock it out. Let's give him some credit there, but Wallace should have come down with that football. But 21 straight completions. Now, I'm telling you, after that first incompletion in 22 throws, Flacco was not sharp the remainder of the game, made a lot of mistakes, and gave the Jaguars an opportunity to steal this game. But when the game was on the line, Joe Flacco did what he always does, which is why I love him. He went down the field, put his team in a position to win this game, and that they did. Ravens get deflection by Timmy Jernigan, and it has an interception by Tavon Young, the rookie out of Temple. Huge play in this game because they were struggling. The Ravens were reeling. They were on the ropes. They had just given up an interception. The Jags were in great territory to put some points on the scoreboard. They needed a play. They got a play. Timmy Jernigan with the deflection leading to an interception by Tavon Young. Huge play. This defense and special teams made some plays to help this Ravens team win this game in the second half. Speaking of which, special teams, huge blocked field goal. It changes the whole complexity of the game. Jags at the time were up, if I'm not mistaken, 17-13. If they get this, or it might have been, 17-13, if I'm not mistaken, or 17-16, one or the other. Either way, if they get the field goal, they go up by 4 or maybe even 6. Either way, it would have put them in a position where the Ravens would have had to score a touchdown late. That's the importance of that field goal that was blocked. And because they blocked that field goal, it gave the Ravens an opportunity to only still need a field goal to win this ball game. That was a huge special teams play. And what we've seen over the life of John Harbaugh's career as Ravens head coach is that this special teams unit is going to be dynamic, and they're going to force the issue, make some big game-changing plays. We saw it last week with the block extra point that changed the whole tenor of that Browns game. You saw it again this week with a blocked field goal that really preserved the game for the Ravens, because if they need a touchdown late, I don't know if they get it on this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. I'm not sure. Don't think that the offense was in a good enough rhythm to need a touchdown late versus just needing a field goal. And then, of course, the game winner by Justin Tucker, a.k.a. Just Incredible. 53-yarder, no doubt about it, right down the pipe. Justin Tucker puts the Ravens on top 19-17. Ultimately, the game-winning score with just over a minute left in this ball game. Let's go to the lights for the Jaguars in the second half. You got an AR-15 touchdown grab. They tried to take it from him, initially calling it incomplete, went back and checked it on the monitor. Definitely a catch. I'm glad they made the right call there, giving him his touchdown. He earned that touchdown. That was a really good play by him. Again, good to see him getting involved and getting in the end zone. Without his production, this team doesn't stand a chance offensively this season. Jalen Ramsey, the rookie, making a great play, diving, deflecting the football, leading to an interception by Jonathan Cyprien, I believe, on that particular play, giving the Jags some great field position and a chance to score. They would ultimately squander that opportunity with Blake Bortles throwing an interception right back to the Baltimore Ravens. We'll talk about that in a second. But Dante Fowler Jr. hits Flacco, and the ball is picked off by Paul Puslesny. Huge play by Dante Fowler Jr. I was hard on him earlier. He comes back and makes a play here to help the Jags get the football back and get an opportunity to get the field goal that could have potentially put this game out of reach. You would have loved to have seen them get in the end zone, but okay, they got to settle for a field goal. It gets blocked by the Ravens. To me, that was a game-saving play by the Ravens, blocking that field goal. You go to the dislikes in the second half for the Ravens. Mike Wallace with a touchdown drop. Talked about that. Flacco would have had his 22nd completion in a row. And I want to say he would have been approaching the NFL record for most completions in consecutive complete and throws. And he would have been damn close. I don't know exactly what the record is. 22, 23, 24, something in there, 25. But he was getting close, and that should have been completion number 22 in a row. Instead, it was dropped by Mike Wallace. Again, give Josh Johnson, the corner on that play, some credit as well. Devin Hester muffs a punt, and they bought Devin Hester here for one thing, not to be a receiver, not to be dynamic on the offensive side, to be a special teams demon, to do the little things like fair catch a ball and make sure you corral it, to make plays special teams-wise, not to muff punts. He needs to catch this. He cannot make those types of mistakes here. If that's the case, they can put anybody else back there and allow them to do that. They don't need a guy like Devin Hester making those types of mistakes. That almost cost this Ravens football team in this game tremendously. Flacco with an INT. We talked about Flacco turning the football over in the second half. The Jags were able to get their hands on the football. Dante Fowler Jr. gets his arm as he's releasing the football, kind of makes that throw a little bit softer than Flacco would have intended and have liked it to be. And Paul Plesney, being Johnny on the spot, picks it off, gives the Jags some new life. Jags dislikes in the second half. Blake Bortles with his second interception, and later on would throw his third. Let me have a quick Blake Bortles discussion. I'm starting to become very, very annoyed with Blake Bortles, and I'm starting to begin to think he's not a franchise quarterback. Here's why. He's making the same mistakes he was making as a rookie. He's making the same mistakes he was making as a second-year player. Now we're in year 3 of Blake Bortles, and we're asking him to turn the corner, to stop making the boneheaded mistakes, to stop misreading coverages, to stop throwing bad interceptions, to stop making the type of mistakes that guys that are in their third year of their careers should stop making. And yet he continues to make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. His situational football acumen is lacking late in this game. You can't make the kind of mistake that he made. You're down 2. You need a field goal. You've got 1 timeout remaining. He gets outside of the pocket, creates a situation where guys may be able to uncover, extends the play with his legs, rolls out of the pocket, and if nothing's there, run. Run, pick up 5, 7, run out of bounds, live to fight another day. Don't just stand there and allow Terrell Suggs to sack you and force you to use your last timeout, and you just ate up 15 seconds of clock doing exactly what? That's not smart. And at the quarterback position, you need to have one of your most high football IQ players at that position. And Blake Bortles simply is not that. He makes the same mistakes. That was not a smart football play. In fact, it is as bad a football play as you will see this weekend. Okay? Terrible awareness of the situation and what you need to do as a quarterback. You should be thinking 2 plays ahead. Not only with this play, hey, if it's not there, get out of bounds, throw it out of bounds, or whatever I got to do. But I cannot take a sack here. I can't take a sack here. And he rolls out, eats up another 7 to 10 seconds, and then gets sacked. Then has to burn the Jaguars' final timeout. So now the middle of the field, essentially not available to you. Not a smart play. And again, Blake Bortles starting to really annoy me. I'm becoming perturbed with the idea of Blake Bortles being a real franchise quarterback. I'm starting to turn. Slowly but surely, I am beginning to turn on Blake Bortles because he's just not smart as an NFL quarterback, making the same mistakes over and over again. Late game execution, and I just kind of talked about that with Blake Bortles. The late game execution by Blake Bortles was horrendous. You have the check down on the first play of that final drive. What are you checking it down for? The Ravens will give you those check downs for 6 yards if you want them. You can have all of those you want because that's in the middle of the field. It keeps the clock running, and you're not getting that much closer to a field goal. So if you want to keep checking it down, guess what? The Ravens will let you have as many of those as you like. As many of those as you like. And he checked it down. Not a smart play if you're Blake Bortles. Then the next play, that's when he takes the egregious sack. He scrambles out of the pocket, buying his offense more time, which is great. Either you're going to run or you're going to throw it to someone or you're going to throw it out of bounds. You got to pick one of the three options. Option D is not on the table. Take a sack. That's the one thing you can't do. He took option D, took a sack, and that was the worst thing he could have done in that situation. Then he wastes the final timeout because of that poor decision to take a sack outside of the pocket when he could have just chucked the ball out of bounds or run, which is what he should have done. Plenty of space to get to the sidelines and pick up about 7 or 8 yards, which would have been a first down and gave you more opportunities to push the football down the field with your timeout still in your back pocket. And finally, the interception thereafter. It was late. You had to do it because of the situation you put your team in by taking that final timeout and the sack. You put your team in a tough bind there, had to force it down the field, ends up throwing an interception to end this football game. Blake Bortles was horrible in that second half, and he cost his football team. The Dante Fowler Jr. penalty before the half cost this team. Look, I'm starting to turn on both Gus Bradley and Blake Bortles. I don't think either one of these guys right now look like they're competent enough to be in the position that they're in. I don't think that Bortles is good enough decision-making wise to be an NFL starter, and I'm starting to turn on Gus Bradley. I don't think he's the right guy for the job as a head man. Maybe he's a defensive coordinator. He's got energy. Guys love him. They love rallying around him. But in terms of having discipline and not making the same mistakes, he's not getting that message across to his team. And again, they're losers in Jacksonville right now. They don't know how to win. This game was there for the taking. The Ravens practically gift wrapped this game for you, and you could not find a way to win. My banana in the tailpipe is reserved for the Baltimore Ravens. You can't keep playing like this and think you're going to win games. You should have lost last week to Cleveland. You should have lost this game to Jacksonville. You're living on the edge. Now, last year, you could have said the same thing about a lot of your losses. You should have won the football game, and you didn't. This schedule set up favorable for you to start 3-0, and you did, which I'm going to give you credit for that. But I know I'm going to get some pushback from Ravens fans calling me a hater or this, that, and the third. Go ahead, knock yourself out. You know I love your quarterback, so I can't be that much of a hater if I love Joe Flacco. But I know you guys are going to be sensitive and say that I'm a hater. Whatever. I'm telling you this right now. If you continue to play the type of football you played in the first 3 weeks of the season, you barely scored 13 points and barely beat the Bills in week 1. You were unimpressive last week, down 20-0 before a blocked field goal or extra point gave you life, and a Browns team that should have been out of this game because they're the Browns were really putting the screws to you early, and you were able to come back, score 25 unanswered points, and hold on at the very end for that game. And then here on the road, very shaky performance. Flacco with 2 second-half interceptions, really giving the Jags a chance. A muff punt by your punt returner, Devin Hester. This was a sloppy performance. And again, if you're playing anybody but the Jacksonville Jaguars, and maybe outside of them, the Titans, you probably, and maybe the Browns too, throw them in there, you probably lose this football game. You can't keep playing like this and expect to win. This was another sloppy performance by the Ravens, and this should have been a loss. You get away with it. My banana in the tailpipe, I'm not falling for this. You can't play like this moving forward and think you're going to win. I'm telling you right now, your schedule only gets tougher from here. You play like this against Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or any one of these teams that can score. Go in the NFC East and try that with the Eagles or the Ravens or the Giants. Hell, even the Cowboys or the Redskins. Try that nonsense with one of those teams. You're going to lose games. Keep turning the football over and think you're going to win. I'm going to tell you right now, you're sadly mistaken if you're the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to do it for your man, Louie T, here on Lockdown Coverage. Let me check Twitter real quick just to make sure I don't have any comments here. I shouldn't, but I don't. So we're going to get out of here. Another crushing defeat for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 2 tough home losses right at the very end. This is a team that just frankly doesn't know how to win. And now I'm starting to question the guys in that locker room, including head coach Gus Bradley and quarterback Blake Bortles. That's going to do it for me here on Lockdown Coverage. Thank you for joining me. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. I've been talking about the Jaguars and their need to change things. It just seems like the more things change, the more the things stay the same in Jacksonville. Unfortunate, they're now 0-3 on the season's. Ravens go to 3-0. Hasn't been impressive, but a win in the National Football League. See you next time.